As trauma certainly remains a critical aspect of the war experience, an encompassing and holistic approach to treating the full spectrum of combat-related PEM injuries may well include traditional and non-traditional clinical intervention for traumatic stress. Further, as late adolescents and young adults were prepared and programmed for war through a sophisticated indoctrination process, boot camp basic training, so also returning warriors must be deprogrammed, that is, prepared to reintegrate into a non-warring environment. Consequently, veterans require re-education to replace warrior values and behaviors with the values appropriate to the society into which they are to reintegrate. This process is intended to shore up their moral identities and verify that this period of horror, their time on the battlefield, was in fact a moral aberration, and that their doubts and their questions regarding war and the warrior mythology were well-founded. Now, once they have realized the moral uniqueness of the battlefield, veterans should be guided to evaluate and assess realistically and honestly their personal responsibility for their actions during war. That is, they must take into account that war's cruelty and brutality distorts character and undermines ethical foundations and moral integrity. Further, they must be prepared to grasp intellectually and emotionally the impact such experiences have upon one's perception of correct behavior. War does present a survival situation in which self-preservation and the preservation of the lives and well-being of comrades becomes a primary motivation. In so doing, veterans may realize that their behavior in combat, though not justifiable, may be understandable, perhaps even excusable, and their culpability mitigated by the fact that those who determined policy, declared war, issued the orders, and allowed the war to occur unchallenged, must share responsibility and culpability for the inevitable horror of war. After all is said and done, a veteran may determine that guilt and shame is appropriate given his actions on the battlefield. In such situations, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and or absolution for his moral transgressions may be necessary, whether through religious ritual, that is confession, sweat lodge, etc., or through acts of atonement, community service, or perhaps by speaking to students, civic organizations, or other groups about the nature and reality of war. What is crucial here is that guilt must not remain static. While the past can never be undone, nor the dead be made to live again, this giving back may allow the veteran, if not to assuage his guilt, at least to have some sort of life around it. It is hoped that such acts of atonement will restore the veteran's sense of integrity, his moral cohesion, thereby raising his self-esteem. Further, reestablishing his moral identity will restore intelligibility to the veteran's world, his relationship to it, and to other human beings, hopefully ending his alienation and isolation from the remainder of the moral community. However we veterans process the experience, what becomes apparent is that war can never be forgotten nor put behind us. We who have experienced its horror can never be made whole again. The best that can be hoped for, I think, is to find a place for it in our being. Now, this is a perilous journey, a difficult and complex process which, unfortunately, goes well beyond the telling of war stories or listening sessions with understanding, sympathetic, and non-judgmental civilians. There are ways, however, that civilians can help. Now, if you know a PEM-injured veteran, suggest that she talk with other vets or with those who truly understand the experience in a group therapeutic environment. Second, War is violence against human beings, self and others. To help veterans heal and others from becoming victimized. Stop the violence. Stop the wars. Third, change the environment in which potential enemies are dehumanized and objectified, in which our children are indoctrinated into a culture of violence and hatred and desensitized to the pain and suffering of potential victims. Fourth, demand that the Constitution, the law of the land, be restored and adhered to, and that only Congress have the ability to declare war or commit troops to combat. Fifth, demand an end to gunboat diplomacy, and demand that the use of violence and war be a last resort in the event of a real, immediate, and serious threat to our national security only. Sixth, bring the troops home now and ensure that all necessary resources are made available to assist them to recover from their injuries. And finally, end the influence of the war profiteers, the robber barons, and the military congressional industrial complex that profit from war and from the lives and the blood of our children.